Junkies. This is a review of Concrete Cowboy, a Netflix movie starring Idris Elba and Caleb McLaughlin.
Yeah.
Who you would all know from Stranger Things. Brilliant young actor.
Who has grown up.
Who has grown up. Who's grown up incredibly. It was kind of one of those releases that just slipped on. There was no sort of fanfare or anything.
Yeah.
It's a kind of twist on the Western.
It is.
Insofar as it's about the black African-American cowboy experience. And it's interesting because I read a story about this.
It's a real place.
Yeah, I read a story about the Fletcher Street Urban Riding Club.
Yeah, it's a real
I remember
place.
reading an article about them, probably about 2 or 3 years ago, and I wonder whether that's what inspired Idris Elba, who's also the producer, to pick it up, actually, because there was something intriguing in that. I think what's nice about this film, just from the get-go, is this idea that why do we assume that cowboys are just white American? I mean, I suppose it's John Wayne and all that kind of stuff. So you've got all that huge amount of baggage of history, of Western cowboy history descending on this. And then, of course, you sort of take essentially a sort of an ethnic minority and you empower them by them being the cowboys.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about this is really, this is told through the eyes of Caleb McLaughlin's experience. So he's a young teenage boy getting into trouble at school, opening shot in a school, waiting outside a headmaster's office. His mother's had enough. She's done everything. She feels she's done everything she can. So she takes him to her husband, her ex, his father, and dumps him on the street. Bit of tough love.
With his 2 black plastic bags.
2 black plastic bags.
That's all he possesses.
I think you can't really talk about this film early enough in our review without talking about Caleb himself.
No, he's good, isn't he?
He's really good.
Really, really good.
I mean, he's really good.
He is.
Because there are great moments where, for the vast majority of this film, he's not saying anything.
No.
And he's just being, which is one of the most difficult
things to do.
And so, of course, he tries to sort of, find his father, tries to connect. He's kind of bushing around on the streets. He sort of goes and kips in this stables, which is nearby. We discover that his father, Idris Elba, is an instrumental part of the local community and the local riding club, which is based on this Fletcher Street Urban Riding Club.
I mean, if not the mainstay of it, in a way.
He's the mainstay, he is, in a way. And then really, what would you say the story is then? It's a sort of coming of age, isn't it?
It is, but also he develops a relationship with a particular friend, which plays...
Smush. Is it Smush?
I don't know who that boy is. I've seen him before. He's really good,
I don't know the actor's name, but Smush is an old friend of his,
I
guess from when he's been hanging out with his dad before.
Yeah, but obviously they've grown up now,
so
things
there's an
come
equivalence.
into it.
They're almost like brothers in a sense, aren't they?
Yeah. I do think his acting, the main boy, Caleb, is astonishing. I mean, in Stranger Things, he was always fine, but he was one of the ones that they didn't emphasise.
Yes, you're right. He was always a supporting part.
So it was all a surprise to me just how good he was.
Yeah, I think this is really his arrival film. I mean,
and because he looks so much older, and I suppose he's a young man now rather than a boy.
Absolutely. And so much of that sort of performance of a young kid is going to be in the way in which he sort of physically embodies his interactions with people, and so you feel his kind of discomfort or his kind of resistance to people. And I quite like the way his relationship, so there's a begrudging development of a relationship. Idris Elba's not that keen on seeing him. There's an estrangement between the two of them, and Idris sort of reluctantly takes him under his wing. And Caleb kind of goes, this is weird, Dad's kind of involved in this whole kind of riding community. And they're all hanging out on the street. They don't look like they're doing much more than just hanging out, though.
No, they don't.
But, intriguingly, many of the people in this film are members of
the actual
Fletcher Street Urban Riding Club. And I think they were great little actors.
Which I thought was amazing.
Wasn't it? Especially the guy in the wheelchair.
The guy in the wheelchair,
the girl he has a bit of a fling with towards the end.
Yeah.
So what did you... I mean, you're a horse lover. What did you make of it all?
Well, I thought, he bonded almost immediately with horses, didn't he? I mean, although he thought the whole thing was ridiculous. And especially he thought ridiculous was the fact that his dad has only got a horse living in the living room.
I thought that was kind of funny.
I thought that was hysterical, because I bet you any money that's based on a real thing.
Yeah.
And in a way it's a classic horse story in that he becomes the boy who can tame the wild horse. There's one horse that's not broken, and it bonds with him. And what's so good about those films, do you remember you and I saw a film, was it called The Rider?
Yes.
Or Mustang?
No, Mustang.
Mustang. And is that when, I mean, obviously they're not acting, the horses, but when you get them on screen and they bond, and they do seem to bond with the people, don't they?
Real.
So it feels absolutely real. All the men who who hang out at the place and work there all make him do the shit work in a way.
Yeah, he's got to clear out the shit. He's got to wheelbarrow it up.
Yeah.
You know, he's got to earn his stripes.
He
hasn't
has, and they're all saying, "Look, just do it," you know, and stop moaning and all of that. And of course, eventually he does.
Yeah, in a strange way, it's quite well, I mean, it's not undramatic. I mean, because what happens is him and Smush also gets caught up with this friend of his, Smush, Smush has kind of turned his back on the whole stable thing.
Yeah.
It's sort of a bit po-faced about it.
And
yet he's trying to kind of develop a career for himself as a drug dealer, isn't he?
He is.
He's decided to move away from it. He sees it as a bit embarrassing. It's a bit like that classic, you know, I used to be part of that, but
what
I'm no
your
longer
parents
part of that.
do is embarrassing.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, exactly. But
so they get caught up in a bit of a drugs
they do
deal thing.
And his dad
on.
more or less says to him,
Idris.
"Look, stop this, Idris, because it's going nowhere, and if you carry on with it, you're going to be out."
What did you think of Idris?
I love Idris Elba. I love him. He never acts. He always
I know what
just
you mean.
is.
He just is.
Yeah.
I mean, I must admit, I found that. I mean, you always feel comfortable with them on screen.
Yeah.
But you kind of know what you're going to get. So there's rarely a surprise there. There were some really powerful moments in this. Weirdly, there is one obvious dramatic moment around the drugs.
Yeah.
And we won't give that away. But when that happened between him and Smush, I was really shocked.
I was
really shocked. And once
Really
again, I think where this film's really powerful is where it doesn't overwrite scenes. And I'm thinking of that scene. I'm thinking of another scene which was particularly powerful where Caleb breaks down with Idris in the house with the horses knocking about.
Yeah.
And they both end up sitting down on the sofa, battered sofa in the window, and they just hold a really long shot. Not a lot was said between them, and for me that was really meaningful because that's real between men. Because often men, and especially dads and their boys, not a lot of verbiage is going to be used.
No.
And a lot was felt in this film. And not too much needed to be said in this film.
Yeah.
Right down to at the end, that very sort of poignant moment where he stood on the horse. I mean, I think if you're coming at this with a really keen critical eye, you could argue it's a little bit romantic.
Sentimental, maybe.
Sentimental, a bit saccharine at times and a bit obvious. But you know what? I kind of forgave it those excesses because I thought this is a really important part of African American history,
unspoken about
history and present history, if you like, that we've never really heard about.
Yeah.
And then I think the film ends with a sort of documentary flourish, where you have the talking heads of the guys who were both in the film but are also part of the actual riding club.
Yeah.
And there was one particularly strong quote from one guy who said, "If it wasn't for this riding school or this stables, I for sure would have got my first felony."
Yeah.
And you sort of think, wow. We need more of this.
Yeah, don't.
Which is then made me retrospect because there's a whole moment in the film where the authorities come in because there was a dead horse. What did you make of that? Did you feel?
Yeah, well,
I thought it left it purposefully ambiguous as to whether you thought they should have stables or not.
I mean, well, within the aegis of the film itself, I wanted to slap them all and say, "Get yourselves together and do it, and then you'll have the place."
Same here.
There was a stop smoking dope sitting in circles talking about the old days. Just sort of start shoveling shit like he did and get on with it.
So true.
In that sort of, but obviously that's within the aegis of the film. But
you didn't sit in judgment of it because you felt because there was an interesting character, wasn't there, of the black cop?
Yeah, who kind of knew the whole sort
he knew the value of the community, but at the same time he was as frustrated with them as we were, which was sort your shit out, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was never really resolved, but I didn't really mind that kind of the incompleteness of that sort of tallied for me.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something else I was really pleased it didn't do. It didn't try to over-emphasize the Western iconography.
No.
I mean, there was a moment where they were kind of breaking out the horses from the police thing and they had the kind of masks on.
Yeah.
I was thinking, oh God, is this going to go a bit sort of, pale rider?
No, they kept it very restrained.
Very restrained.
I mean, there's the one shot, which I love, I have to say, I'm just an absolute sucker for it, where the two horses are walking side by side. And the music's going.
It's beautifully shot.
It is beautifully
shot. It's really nicely shot. And, again, some really just sort of meaningful, static, wide shots, allowing the action to develop. That dramatic moment with Smush where they just cut to this very clever shot where it cut in close to the action of what had happened after that, and then the camera just dollied away from them, away from the scene.
Yeah,
I had to rewind it and watch it again. I loved how it was done. It was done so cleverly, and all the way through this film, if you're a Stranger Things fan, you're going to be absolutely charmed by Caleb McLaughlin. in his personality. He's an awkward teenager.
Yeah.
And he's all the things that an awkward teenager is.
Yeah. And you really feel that this is the start of his career from now.
Yeah.
Because he's always been in Stranger Things and he's always been a huge part of it, one quarter.
Yeah.
But again, because he has played low...
And it's a bit cartoony. I mean, all their characters are a bit cartoony in that, aren't they? But this is really his arrival. This is his moment. A little bit like with Millie Bobby Brown and her, playing Sherlock Holmes' sister.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it Nora Holmes or Enola Holmes?
Enola.
This is his moment. This really is his moment. And it's what I liked about Idris Elba's performance. I felt it was a very generous performance.
Yeah.
I felt it was like he was saying, "You take this."
Yeah.
Because I also know he's the producer. So in a way, there's a kind of a gift here.
Yeah, yeah. No,
okay, well, let's sum it up and score it.
You can't go wrong with me. If it's about horses,
that's what I thought.
Cowboys,
it's America,
Americana.
Yeah,
even Idris, who I really like.
He's always a reliable pair of hands.
Yeah, I mean, he never does anything different, but I like what he gives us. And the boy, who was a complete revelation to me, as we've said. And the story and the fact that it's real is always interesting. And, you sort of think, oh, my God, this should be available for everybody. And clearly it does everybody's mental health good. What would I score it? 80 out of 100.
Wow. Okay. I agree. I thought this was a really pleasant surprise.
Yeah, I did.
I thought, sometimes I think when you go to Netflix and you haven't heard too much fuss or buzz about something, you think, is this going to be good? I mean, one shouldn't think like that as a movie reviewer, but I did. I'm an Idris Elba fan, but I'd be lying if I said he drives me to a film. He wouldn't
never
sell a
would,
film.
Would he? No.
I was drawn to it because of its subject matter and because I remember reading a story about this very riding club. I love the fact that it's based in reality. I love the way in which it had a documentary feel. I wonder whether it's going to eventually, in a couple of years, sit alongside something like Nomadland, where there's this new genre of almost travelogue-y drama films pivoting around real people and real communities.
Yeah.
This is a real community like the real communities that are coming, I hear, in Nomadland.
Yeah.
So I feel it sits within that. I think this is something that filmmakers are exploring at the moment. There was that film The Rider, which I didn't see, which I think was Chloe Zhao's film or someone.
Yeah.
Caleb McLaughlin, I've said it before, absolute must for him. He absolutely underperforms brilliantly in this.
Yeah, exactly.
You would be forgiven for thinking he wasn't acting at all, and I was really examining him in so many of those shots where you couldn't really make out what was going on, and it was just like, oh wow, this is amazing. I really want to see it on the big screen because it looked beautiful. The colours were rich.
It did.
I thought the supporting sense of community was great, and it was just another reminder that you're right. Some of the transformational potential in these communities or for certain sections of society can come from the most unlikeliest of places, whether it be horses or there's that wonderful chap in LA who's the kind of gangster gardener.
Yeah.
Is there some other way to kind of stop people from, or certainly, the African-American experience of tipping into a life of crime because of a lack of opportunity?
Yeah.
And I thought this, you could argue it could have been a bit more political. But I quite liked it. It sort of meandered a bit.
I thought the fact that it wasn't any more political was part of its charm.
Yeah, as I say, if any criticism, maybe a bit too romantic, a bit gloopy at times.
Yeah.
I'd be a bit more generous than you. I'd probably give it 83 out of 100.
Yeah,
I'd really recommend this is one to check out on Netflix.
Definitely.
For more film and family fun, don't forget to click the subscribe button and make sure to click the bell to never miss an update.